I'm never this on top of it, and I had a stop to make before work. I'm never this. So let's go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh for the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. Let's start off with a bang. This is a fun one. Oh, I got to get it on here. Okay. I'll just surprise you,
who my money's on.
in the name of college
Have you
football.
seen that defense? Yeah, okay. All right.
Here we go. Whoops. He's buying beer.
Hey,
All of a sudden, he notices that the
Think you
bar
may
is
need one of
outfitted in the
these,
wrong
too.
colors. They say, well, maybe you need the other team's hat.
Nah, I'm just messing with you.
Just messing with
Oh,
you.
that was good. Good weekend. Enjoy the game.
Get a dose. What's really funny is the next commercial. Ocho Ekis, and it's got all the Ekis that you ever would need, and it's a total parody. But this only has one like. I better give it a like. Okay, so I just thought I'd start your day off with something silly, because that's part of what we do here, like it or not, right? Okay, now let's get over to the good stuff. Musk admits his self-driving system is not that great. It plows into police and rescue vehicles, and it plows into trucks turned sideways across the road. But other than that, if you're paying attention, you can always hit the brakes by yourself. The problem is as Google found, was that when people get used to the car doing 95% of the work, they start reading books and stuff, which I used to do without a self-driving car. Till I looked up once and there was this 18-wheeler in my lane, except he wasn't. I was in his lane. Coming at me. Woo! Anyway, so I stopped that back when I was a young man. Hey, Phoenix, I sent you an article that I'm going to be talking about in just a minute or two that's really going to be great. So give it a quick look and let me know when we get there if you can do that, because, I'll give you a plug. Okay, we're having a meetup. We sent out an email. It's probably in your junk spam folder. It's from me personally, John Miglosh. Those don't seem to get as good of response as the ones from the WDMA, but it's really from the WDMA. And we got some really great people. I think Keith's signed up, and so are two of the principals in one of the biggest printing companies in America. You'll get to meet them. And Ellen signed up, my friend Ellen, and a bunch of other people. So it won't be overwhelming, but it'll be a lot of fun. We always have fun, and we always seem to learn something. I didn't see anybody from USPS yet, so come on. Okay, if you're on LinkedIn, Keith just sent you the link to go register for the meetup next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central Daylight Time, in case you haven't moved your clocks back or forth yet. Okay, spring ahead. So Elon admits they're not that great. They're trying to build the same basic AI system. It's really all just programming. They're trying to get the car to understand city driving versus highway driving. Probably a big mistake. Would probably make sense to have a whole different set of instructions, whole different computer that hands it off between the two once the car gets going more than 75 miles an hour or something, because that's a whole different kettle of fish, right? As we all know, some people I know won't drive on freeways, and probably with good reason. Anyway, then there was this Don Burnett, who is the CEO of Kodiak Robotics, who's trying to make trucks stuff. And he says, really high truck highway performance is not the same as dense urban passenger car performance. Duh. And that's why, like in our machine learning, what we figured out long ago was this lie about tell us your best customers and we'll find more like them. Total lie. No, you won't, because you don't even know why they're your best customers. They don't know even maybe why. You might have fixed something, or maybe their mom bought from you and they still do, or something. There's no way to figure that out. But I can tell you what you can figure out. You can figure out customer clusters and geodemographic clusters that you've mailed thousands and thousands and thousands of times and don't get any orders, and say, hey, that's probably not the best place to mail anymore. Once you can identify those characteristics, the mailings get better, but not for the reason that everybody says. right? It's just like this. Ask the right questions and you might get a better answer. Okay, speaking of lies, I thought this was a really good, really good, interesting article. I got it off Adland. Um, trying to remember my friend's name that runs Adland, and it's a really interesting name, and I always forget. Anyway, check it out. See if I have a link there. No, I had to cut and paste this because her format doesn't lend itself to PDFing. Okay, there's this story of this janitor that was inspired, and he worked at Frito-Lay, and he was inspired by the CEO to go for it, and he came up with very, very spicy Cheetos, flaming hot, crunchy Cheetos, and they're making a movie about his life, and he gets $10,000 to $50,000 per speaking engagement, and talks about how he got to director level at Frito-Lay from being a janitor, which, however he did it, is a pretty amazing story. But he claims that he had something to do with the inventing this hot and spicy Frito-Lay Cheeto, but it turns out he didn't. He wasn't around. His timeline is off by a couple of years. It was a team of developers in Texas and that worked for Frito-Lay, and the lady that came up with the flaming hot idea didn't get any credit at all, but now I guess she is. I'm going to read her name because she's Greenfield is her last name. What's her first name? Sometimes I highlighted too much stuff. But as the article points out, in the world of advertising, there's no such thing as a lie. There's only expedient exaggeration, which is what the self-driving car article claims Musk does all the time. And, it's probably kind of what Trump was doing. It wasn't like he wasn't getting it kind of directionally true. It was that he was exaggerating dramatically or getting the numbers a little wrong. I worked for a guy like that, and people loved it. People loved whatever he talked about. He would always put in decimals in all the numbers. He said that gave the numbers better credibility. Which 98.7% of the time it does, but not always. Anyway, here it is, Lynn Greenfield. I should have underlined it there. Lynn Greenfield is the one who came up with the flaming hot. And when she heard about this urban legend of janitor to director, she called foul, and the company started an investigation, whatever that means, and found out that it's totally wrong. He had nothing to do with it, but he's getting full credit, and that's the way it is. If you're a consultant, I learned long ago, you can't do much if you care who gets the credit. So everybody else can have the credit. Okay, this is an excellent, super great article. It's one of the best that I've come across in a long time. Forbes, which I appreciate Forbes is giving voice to some of these low-tech solutions here. This isn't by any means low-tech, but I mean like direct mail. Okay, customer acquisition. We're going to talk about customer acquisition, and we've got a little bit of time, so that's great. I went fast. David Hadaway, and I did write to him, and I invited him to be on with us. I don't see him on, but David, if you're out there, come on. I told him it was going to be yesterday, and I didn't get to it, and I wanted to give it plenty of time. So customer acquisition, according to HubSpot, is the process of bringing new customers or clients into your business. The goal of this process is to create systematic, sustainable acquisition strategy that can evolve with new trends and change. Okay. A survey of 1,000 small business owners said that customer acquisition was one of the biggest challenges of small business in the next year. Okay. So why is that? 1, marketing to existing customers is easier. Yes. You'll get much higher response rates. When we were working with Cabela's, I had long ago said you're never going to get more orders than the number of pieces you mail. Guess what? There was a segment at the top of the model in Cabela's fishing that pulled more than 100% response. It was about 5,000 people. We mailed 5,000 pieces, and we got, 6,000 orders or some crazy thing like that. It wasn't that everybody responded. It was that some people responded more than once. And for in fishermen, I remember seeing one zip code when we were doing prospect modeling, which is for customer acquisition, that we mailed one piece of mail and got 2 orders. 200% response. So don't tell me you can't get more than 100% response. Anyway, that one wasn't mailing to customers. That was just like random, I think. Don't let one person in Arizona define your walleye best customer segment. That's a lesson there, which I have already touched on from the previous article. So it's easier. The Wall Street Journal came up with this idea that it's easier to sell products and services to existing customers than to someone you don't have a relationship with. That is only mildly true. Sometimes it's false. Sometimes your product is no good. Sometimes your product is a novelty. Those chocolate dipped cherries that advertise on talk radio. I was interested in we're going to talk about list brokerage and lists next time tomorrow. But I asked my list broker about that list. He says nobody rents it twice. I said, what do you mean? He said, people are buying those things for other people. They have no loyalty. They're just looking for novelty. Something to think about. Okay. So it's not always the case that it's easier to sell products to existing customers, and there's a limit to what you can sell, right? Sometimes it's better to start a whole nother division like Levi's did with Dockers, right? As opposed to Lee, who is not famous for khaki pants, but Dockers is. It's almost a trademark problem. Marketing to existing customers has a better return on investment. Also generally true, but you can beat the tar out of them and vaccinate them from ever buying again. Acquiring a new customer can cost at least 5 times more than retaining an existing one. Also possibly true, probably true, okay? But that doesn't mean you can just give up on them, okay? Existing customers tend to spend more money. Also true, right? Existing customers are 50% more likely to try new products and spend 31% more than compared with new customers. Although in Cabela's we saw an interesting pattern. Oftentimes we'd see a low value order that customers were checking you out, and then we would see a dramatically greater spend. Like when I got into hunting, my wife said, "How much do you think it'll cost?" I'm still spending money on hunting. I said, "I don't know. I just bought a camo coverall for $25 and the license was like $25 and a friend lent me a bow. I don't know, $100, I took the random arrows to the bow shop and said, "Would it be better to have all the same kind of arrows?" And they just laughed at me. So I bought more arrows. I bought matching arrows. What an idea. Anyway, I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on hunting now. But what happened was, initially I spent very little. See if I like it. I didn't like it that much. It was, get up real early in the morning, sit still and be quiet. My wife said, "You're not going to be very good at this, are you?" So anyway, and then on a good day you catch something and then you got to deal with a carcass. So it's not easy. It's not easy. And I sympathize with murder mysteries in how do you deal with this, which is a similar size or a little bigger. Okay, so yes, existing customers tend to spend more money, but there's a curve there. They can start low, go high, and then taper out once they've gotten all that they can think of buying, although there's always some new gizmo widget, ding dang doodad that you can buy. Okay, acquiring new customers is still important to replace the inevitable attrition of existing customers. We're going to get over to the bathtub model in a second. Determine customer needs. Many of the direct marketing strategies for acquisition begin and end. This is where the article really gets good. With demographics, age ranges, all that. It's too vague. And he's right. What I've found over the years is oftentimes the customer file can give you a very precise indication of what to aim for, because there are better customers with key variable differences, like initially bought from the catalog instead of Amazon or something like that. So our system taps out at about 500 variables, but there's a lot you can learn from 500 variables. You can also, it's optimized for anomalies, and you can often spot something odd that you don't think should be there, and that can open doors to whole new businesses. Okay. Better than this, what is my ideal customer question? He's right about that. Think of the impulse aisle in terms of starting a new customer. Think about what is in the get yourself a little something section of Amazon. Offer it to customers who don't know what they want or need, which is just about everybody. Okay? In the financial world, this could be a personal loan to someone with multiple high interest rate credit cards, or it could be information, it could be how to get your finances together, how to get out of debt, how to lose 20 pounds in 3 weeks. That's what I should do. If you don't know what the customer needs, ask them. Attach a 2 or 3 question survey to your email communications. That almost never happens, and even when you do, no one listens, because I'd fill them out. Phones need a little charging light, just like my Bluetooth earphone has, which was, I think, free. If a free item can have a charging light, why can't my several $100 smartphone, when I want to keep the screen off, why can't it have a little light? Okay, with acquisition, a broader strategy is necessary. Absolutely right. Especially on a startup. You don't want to say, well, we're sure these kind of people will be our customers. Don't ever say that. Have some humility, like Ritson said yesterday. Try some areas around the key target. You might find out that there's gold in them there hills. When we started with computer supplies, when we first conceived of launching a computer supplies catalog, there were only like 6. By the time we got in the mail, there were 60, 10 times. Everybody decided they wanted to have a computer supplies catalog. The lists that worked were not the computer lists. They also were not the Sports Illustrated lists, the non-related lists at all. But they were the lists where it's kind of on the edge of things, like business lists and stuff, where people hadn't been saturated they weren't getting 60 catalogs a month in computer supplies, but they were interested in a couple. And sometimes off of the target actually does better than straight on. This is something I wanted to touch on. I really like this. Once you identify the consumers with a need for your product, your contact strategy should include something that we call 1-5-20 strategy. 1 direct mail piece, 5 emails, and 20 social media ads. Not necessarily in that sequence. We found works best by putting a tangible, somewhat expensive direct mail in the prospect's hands. By adding up to 5 emails before, and after the direct mailer hits their mailbox. I would also say consider informed delivery and putting an offer into there, because the post office claims that they get response, though I've never talked to a merchant that got significant response through informed delivery, but I'm happy to hear a case study. Would love to hear about it. And then 20 social media impressions, which you can do through Google Ad Network or Facebook. If you have the street address, you can direct target an ad directly to that address. So he said he's seeing 20 to 40% lift on their response rates. And I always ask, at what cost? But he goes on to say, use the lifetime value rule. Determine the lifetime value. If your auto lender averages $4,000, which is net profit over time. I really like more like an ROI, EBITDA kind of number. CFOs like that, where we say, okay, this guy's going to be, we expect, or this cohort of customers has been worth, that's much more precise, has been worth $5,000 in the next 5 years of profit, of net profit, bottom line profit. Taking out the cost of retargeting, taking out the cost of goods, taking out the cost of maintenance and fulfillment. And so that gives you the lifetime value. And then he says, so your budget should be under $1,000 per new customer acquired. Right. You don't want to spend all that money. This is a mistake people make who were selling lifetime value. But it's not easy to know, because how much, you have a general budget for your website, or you have a general budget for mass media. How much of that is actually being seen by your existing customer base and not being noticed by others? Okay, find accurate information, and that was a good one about list sources, and that's the end of that. But I wanted to just show you, illustrate what they're talking about. One thing they're talking about is this is like campaign through a number of years, okay? And every year we add in a few customers and then they peter out, okay? And then, whoops, and then this is what your customer file ends up looking like by frequency and monetary. You've got a whole lot of people that only bought once and didn't spend much, and very, very few people who bought often and bought a lot. This is why profiling your customer file on the basis of these makes no sense whatsoever, because they're such a small percentage. But if you can figure out how to rule out most of these and go after the ones that have a higher probability of coming back to life, that is real money if you're going to talk about customer file, okay? So this is more like what your customer file looks like. You know, you're growing your business and they're piling up, and this is like through time. This is like into July of the next year. And what you can compare across time is number of active customers, and define it by like who bought in the last 12 months. Okay, so what you end up with is this silo of customers, and the problem you have is you put new customers in and you can measure the height of the number of new customers, but you don't, you say, okay, if we put this guy in, we should have 4 customers now, or 4,000 or 400,000, but it doesn't work that way. Why? Because some are falling out. So you're putting them in, you can tell who's new because you didn't have their address before, but you can't know when they're falling out because, their wife said, don't you ever buy any more of that hunting gear again. Or we used to see in Guitar Center, if somebody bought a $4,000 Gibson guitar, they'd go dormant for about 4 years. And then we could reactivate them, after the divorce was finalized and they moved into the mobile home. Mobile home percentage was another one of those key variables that worked really well for a musician's friend. Anyway, so what you have to do is you have to keep doing acquisition because they're falling out and they're not telling you. Not like life insurance where Martin Bear invented this. So have a great day. Like and share. Your friends will know you're smart.